You ever heard that statement, don't count your chicken before your eggs hatch? Yeah, think about that with your deals. Sometimes we have these amazing deals sitting in our pipeline and we're like, ooh, we're going to get some good chicken today. But then all of a sudden they don't hatch, or quote unquote, your deals don't come to fruition. Many of them, they had red flags, but you didn't witness or know those red flags until after the matter. What if there's a way that you can identify and figure out what's going wrong before they actually go wrong? In today's episode, I have a special guest. We have Andee Harris, the CEO of Challenger, who's going to share some ideas that can help you to make sure you're on the right side, the winning side, when it's all said and done. Check it out. Hey, everyone. Welcome to another great episode of the Sales Evangelist podcast. I'm your host, Donald C. Kelly, the Sales Evangelist. And I'm so excited for another great episode. I'm so excited to be here with you today. And on this episode, we have the one and only Andee Harris. And we spoke about her in the teaser there. I bragged about her. She's the CEO of an organization you probably have heard of. You heard of Challenger, right? You probably heard of the book, The Challenger Sale. Well, this organization is that's the organization. And they bring a lot of insights to the table when it comes towards helping sales professionals become more effective in their role. Now, I highly recommend you go check them out. If you've never read The Challenger Sale, I recommend you go ahead and do that as well. We have a link in the show notes because it's a phenomenal book and it's going to put you in the right direction. But specifically thinking about this, sometimes your deal goes south and you don't know what's going wrong until it's gone wrong. What if there's a way we can figure that out? Andy's going to lay out 3 ideas today that you can take advantage of to make sure that you're not sitting in the dust with a losing deal, but something that's actually going to win. If this is your first time watching one of my videos or listening to our podcast, please subscribe. As well as if you've listened for a minute and you're like, I love you, brother, but I haven't done this, which is to leave a rating and review, go ahead and do that. I would greatly appreciate it.
People often think they're good sellers or unaware, or often blame other reasons for why they're not successful. And most of it has to do with just miscommunication, not tailoring to the customer, or just not understanding even why they lost the sale in the first place. And so I think that whenever the economy gets tight, or you feel uncertainty, like what's going on with remote selling, often what rises to the top are the people who really truly know how to make a difference in how they sell, which we call challengers. But I think the way to illustrate this, from the easiest approach, is that most people think that the relationship seller. If you ask people like, who's your top selling profile, who's someone that would sell really well, and people are like, oh, the relationship seller. They build these unbelievable relationships. They're constantly with the client, taking them to lunch, pre-COVID, I guess, golfing, doing whatever. And you actually find that the especially in uncertain times, the relationship seller is actually the least productive seller. And so that's a fairly interesting data point when you start to think about who is successful in these types of environments. We always talk about, the sales deck, right? And the first 6 pages are things that people can find on the internet. It's table stakes. So it's like if you start your sales deck even with, hey, here's where we're located, here's how many customers we have, here, a bunch of information that I can easily find on a website. That's not interesting to me. And you've already lost me, especially on a Zoom meeting when people are going from Zoom meeting to Zoom meeting. Like, it has to be really something that's insightful and interesting to them and shows them that you actually understand their business and like what they're going through.
So considering this idea of how do I make sure I can know my deals before they go south, are there any ideas, maybe 3 ideas that we can point to that I can be aware of that can help me in that process, Andee?
Yeah. So, one of the things that we are measuring now with our Loop product is this idea of continuous feedback. And my background, I actually came from a culture company, a company called High Ground, that we measured employee engagement, and we use feedback and recognition as part of that. So really understanding that people actually want to give coaching and feedback, and especially if they do like you as a sales representative, they are going to want to share. So our idea is really that people throughout the sales experience, and we're not bombarding them, but if you imagine like the constant email that we all send to salespeople, like, hey, can you touch base? What's going on with the deal? You start to panic, right? You start to send all those emails, like, and then as the prospect is usually like, okay, I'm gonna just ghost this person. Rather than doing that, you could say we give you, it's a 1 to 3 minute survey, and it's essentially like, hey, what's going well in this deal? What are you excited about? And it really gives you this perspective of where the deal's going for you. And so you have an idea when the deal is going south before you actually get to that stage where it's closed, lost, right? And there's nothing worse than something closing and you don't even understand why, and then you put the typical reason, which is like, oh, we don't have that feature or functionality, or some other reason that us as sellers make up when we lose a deal. And the other piece of it too is that we know that 38% of deals end in no decision. So really understanding like what could you do earlier on in the deal to help them actually get to a point where they make a decision versus ending up in no decision. So if you look at the coach doesn't wait till the end of the game to be like, oh shoot, I could have said all these things to readjust the team. Like if you had a coach that sat there and didn't say anything throughout the entire game, you'd be like, that's a terrible coach, right? But if you think about it from our perspective, we run an entire sales process without anybody saying anything. Then we find out we lost the deal, and it's like, well, wait, why did you lose that deal, right? Or even why did you win that deal? Let's be positive, right? It still is the same analogy. A coach is constantly, to your point, making adjustments along the way, and that's what we think about when we think about the sales process. It should be constantly readjusting and making sure that it is agile and fluid.
Come on, where have you been my life? That's philosophy is just like so spot on. It's so perfect. It makes total sense. The third thing that we can do to make sure that we're not standing in the dust when everything's all said and done. How can I make sure?
Yeah, I think it's really important to constantly be learning and be curious as to like why things, didn't work out, or make sure that you're really looking at that feedback and really understanding and internalizing and being very self-aware of your strengths and your weaknesses. I'm a big proponent of being, incredibly self-aware and know what you can do better the next time. And, if that scenario presents itself again, for example, often we talked about teach, tailor, take control. That we do sometimes train people, and the take control is a little too aggressive for certain, industries or companies. And so we want to make sure that like we are readjusting that. So constantly just being very aware as to what other people's body language might be, how you're perceived. And that's why, once again, really understanding as much data as you can get. Like, we really think about it like that 360 approach to a salesperson. You get you kind of have your customer insights now with Loop. You have your manager's insights because your manager, is watching you, hopefully listening to some gong calls or chorus calls. So your manager does have that perspective, but then also being your own, being very self-aware as to like how you come to the table. And I think when you have an opportunity to look at all of those data points, it could be really telling as to like how successful you're going to be.
If there's one major piece of advice that you want folks to walk away from our discussion today, what's one thing you want them to leave with?
Yeah, I think just understand that this is a really complex environment that we're trying to sell in right now. We have a lot of things, looming recession, Zoom calls, remote selling, but it's not impossible. And to your point earlier when we started, like there's still a lot to be won here, and it's a great opportunity for really good, prepared, well-trained sales reps to really do phenomenally well in this environment. So it's not a gloom and doom situation. It's actually like a really positive situation. So
I'm telling you, brothers and sisters, that was some good stuff there. I learned and I got some good ideas regarding not only the feedback loop, but this notion of helping my team like in the process rather than waiting for the deal to get to an end before I figure out how to fix the issues. I recommend you go ahead and connect with Andee. Tell her you heard her here on the Sales Evangelist podcast, and also check out the book, The Challenger. I know you're going to really love it. It's a really, really, really good book. And I think the organization overall, the cool things you're doing with Loop is also going to be beneficial for you. As always, I do this and I bring folks on like Andee because I want you to thrive and succeed. I want you to find more of your ideal customers. I want you to know what to say when you reach out to them. I want you to close more deals. Most importantly, I want you to raise the level of thinking and go out and do big things. Until next time.